stadium tours again? Will artists get to connect in that way, on that scale ever again? And there were a lot more important conversations going on culturally, so I just did not think about those conversations. And also it was too sad. I was just like, I'm not gonna think about not seeing them in this way. Because I've been writing songs and playing them live since I was 12, and this is the way that I process stuff. I make music and then I sing it with you, and when you sing along, I feel better. And so during the pandemic, I just thought, you know what, if I can't play shows with them, and I can't go out on tour and see them, I'm just gonna make as many albums as possible and connect with them in that way. And so we do have, since I've seen you last, 4 new members of our musical family that I would like to talk about. The first one being Lover. Folklore, Evermore, and Midnight. And Evermore was a pandemic album, and so I just didn't think about anything other than making that album, writing it, putting it out. But there was one song that when I wrote it, I just thought, man, I really, really wish I could play Champagne Problems with them. You guys all just putting your phones up and creating like the most beautiful setting in which I could ever sing that song. That was so generous of you to do that. Like, just deciding amongst yourselves to do that. So that song, Marjorie, that I just sang, that's a song about my grandmother, my mother's mother. She passed away when I was 13. She was an opera singer, so she, I know she would have loved to have sang at MetLife Stadium. And so her voice is actually on that song. We have a recording of her actual voice singing on that song, and so technically she just did sing at MetLife Stadium. So you know, it's been about 5 years since I've been able to tour and see you like this and dance with you like this and look at you and feel that. You know, there's for me, there's no other feeling like it. I've been playing shows since I was 12, and I always am playing songs I've written. So that's kind of become part of the way I process life, the way I deal with things. Is I write songs in a very lonely, often isolated moment where I'm absolutely sure that I'm the only person who's ever felt this way, and then when I go on a stage and I get to look down or look out or look up or look over and see that you know the words too, and you're singing them so passionately, that's the thing. Sometimes I get so distracted by how incredibly passionately you're performing in the audience. It's amazing what you guys do out there. I feel like I make like thousands of new best friends every night. But you know, so not touring for 5 years, it really kind of like mega turbocharged the experience for me being up here with you now. I just like, it's crazy for me. You have no idea. This is in no way normal for me in my brain, or in my feelings. It's all very intense. And so, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I'm having... But, you know, in the time that I couldn't tour and I couldn't see you and I couldn't connect with you like that, face to face, I just decided, you know what? I'm gonna connect with them in whatever way I'm allowed to, so I'm just gonna make as many albums and write as many songs as I possibly can and put them out. And so that's what I did. And so we have 4 new members of the musical family to welcome into our ranks. And it starts out with Lover. And then Folklore. And Evermore. And Midnights. Evermore. That's the era that we are currently in, as you can tell by my moss-covered piano and all that. It's the second pandemic album that I made, and this was when there was no talk of live performance and when we would ever get back out there, and if we would ever do stadium shows again. But there was one song that I wrote that was on Evermore, that when I wrote it, I just couldn't help but daydream about what it might be like to one day sing Champagne Problems with you. It's about my grandmother who passed away when I was 13, and she was an opera singer. And so I'm pretty sure it's a fact that she would have loved to have gotten to sing at MetLife Stadium. But her voice is actually on that song. So technically, she just did. So it's been about 5 years since I've gotten to tour and see you and dance with you and connect with you like this and look at you in the eyes, and in that time, we had a really serious global pandemic, so the conversations that I was thinking about were not really the conversations revolving around the fact that nobody knew if we were ever going to be able to tour again, because there were really a lot more important things to have conversations about. But basically, I knew that I couldn't connect with you in this way for a long time, but I decided instead to write as many songs as I possibly could and make as many albums as I possibly could and try to connect with you that way. And so that's what I did. So, in lieu of that, we actually have 4 new members of the musical family that we have added to our repertoire. And their names are Lover, Folklore, Evermore, currently on, last but not least, Midnight. And Evermore was the second pandemic album that I made, and I really did try not to think about how sad it was that we couldn't tour, because I was like, I wonder if I'll ever get to play these songs for them in a big setting like this, in a big stadium, because this is unreal. These shows are crazy for me to experience with you, just so you know. If you think I'm just coasting along thinking that this is normal, that is not the case. This is extraordinary. I cannot believe that I get to have these experiences with you. And so when I was writing Evermore, there was one song in particular where after I wrote it, I thought, man, that would be really, really fun to sing with them in the stadium. On this tour, I get to look out into the most stunningly beautiful, brilliant crowds of people who are living their authentic lives, who are loving who they want to love, who are identifying how they identify, and allies who support them in that and celebrate them in that. It's like the most beautiful experience for me to look out into the crowds on this tour. I'm looking out tonight, I'm seeing so many incredible, just individuals who are living authentically and beautifully, and this is a safe space for you. This is a celebratory space for you. And one of the things that makes me feel so prideful is getting to be with you and watching you interact with each other, being so loving and so thoughtful and so caring. And so being with you during Pride Month, getting to sing the words to "You Need to Calm Down," where there are lyrics like, "Can you just not step on his gown?" or "Shade never made anybody less gay," and you guys are screaming those lyrics. In such solidarity, in such support of one another, in such encouraging, beautiful acceptance and peace and safety. And I wish that every place was safe and beautiful for people in the LGBTQ community. I really wish that. Because, you know, we can't talk about Pride Month without talking about pain. There right now, and recently, and in the recent years, there have been so many harmful pieces of legislation that put people in the LGBTQ and queer community at risk. It's painful for everyone, every ally, every loved one, every person in these communities, and that's why I'm always posting, this is when the midterms are. This is when these important key primaries are. Because we can support as much as we want during Pride Month, but if we're not doing our research on these elected officials, are they advocates? Are they allies? Are they protectors of equality? Do I want to vote for them? I love you guys so much, and happy Pride Month, and I adore you, I really do. We have a lot to catch up on, guys. We really do. It's been about 5 years since I've gotten to see you in a live stadium kind of space like this, and since the last 5 years, I've put out 4 new albums of new music. And you know, we had a pandemic, we had a world pandemic that was the focus of everything, that was the most important conversation happening. And that was obviously going to take precedence, so I didn't think about the fact that we may never do tours again. You know, I put that out of my head. And I just figured that if the only way that I could connect with you was to make albums and put them out and write songs, and that was the way I was going to do it, and I was just going to make as much music as I possibly could. So we have a few new members of the musical family I'd like to introduce you to. Their names are Lover, Folklore, Evermore, and Midnight. And even though I wasn't thinking about live music at the time that I was making these albums, there was one song that when I wrote it, I just thought it would be so much fun to sing this at Soldier Field with a stadium full of beautiful people singing along with me. So let's do it. This is called Champagne Problems. Your phone flash lights up like that? As if it's not sparkly enough, this show. You guys all have the wristbands on. You guys are already blinking like the whole night, but you guys are like, no, we're taking it up a notch. It needs to be more. I love it so much. Especially that song that I just sang, Marjorie, that's a song that I wrote about my grandmother, my mom's mom, who she was a singer too, and she passed away when I was 13, and you know how there's always just like one member of the family where people just always say, oh, you remind me of that, you know, people are my whole life always like, oh, this just reminds me of something Marge would do. So I wrote a song in her honor, And I know she would have loved to perform at Soldier Field, and her voice is technically on that song, in that recording, so she just did, really. And you guys were kind enough to put up your phones and make it look like a beautiful galaxy of cell phone stars, and I love you so much for that. It's so pretty. Wow, we have a lot to catch up on, don't we? We really do. It's been 5 years since I've been able to tour. That's a long time. And you know, the fact of the matter is that the reason it's been this long since we've seen each other is because we had a pandemic, and it was very all-encompassing for all of us. And you know, the conversations in the music industry were all very, very grim about the future of touring, right? It was like, a lot of people were saying that there will never be stadium tours again. And so I just kind of chose to look away from that, not think about that. Because that was just, you know, I mean, that's devastating. I live for doing this with you. This is my entire personality, is getting to be with you and sing with you. And it has been since I was about 12. I've been playing shows, writing songs, playing shows, in order to cope with my feelings since I was 12 years old. So you can imagine that I kind of had to come up with a plan. I was like, okay, so if I can't connect with them in a live setting, and see them and dance with them and sing with them, then maybe I'll just make as many albums as humanly possible and put them all. So that's what I did. So, therefore, we have 4 new members of the musical family that I would like to mention, that we have welcomed into our world together, and their names are Lover, Folklore, the era we are currently in the midst of, Evermore, and Midnight. You know, looking out and seeing you and knowing that for a very long time I wasn't sure about if we were going to get to do this again, it makes me think back to all the times that, you know, that this wasn't like a guaranteed inevitability in my life, that I get to see you again and get to do this. So it makes me extra humbled and grateful that we get to be here. We get to share this room. Is it a room if it doesn't have a ceiling? It's a room. We get to share this room together. And I get to hear you raise your voices as we all sing the breakup song that is Champagne Problem. And most of those things are new albums that have come out since I toured with us. So basically, you know, what has kept us apart for this long was a global pandemic that we all remember, and we all went through in different ways. One of the ways that it affected my life, aside from all the obvious ones, is that, you know, we weren't able to tour. We weren't able to come out and see you guys and do something that I've been using as a coping mechanism since I was about 12 years old. You know, like writing a song and then playing it for you. And if you guys sing the words back, then that makes me feel like I'm not alone in feeling that emotion. It's a pretty solid coping mechanism, and it's worked for a really long time. Because you guys are like the most supportive people on planet Earth, and I'm so lucky you want to come out here and sing with me. So what I kind of decided pretty early on into the pandemic was, if I can't be in a stadium performing and dancing with them and singing with them and having these kind of connective experiences with you guys, I just figured, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make as many albums as humanly possible and put them out. That's what I'll do. So we have 4 new members to add to our musical family. Their names are Lover, Folklore, the one we're currently in the middle of, Evermore, and last but not least, Midnight. You know, Evermore is an album that I wrote, you know, as a second pandemic album that I wrote. And it was an album I wrote without really thinking about how the songs would translate live, because I didn't think I ever would really get to. I just kind of had decided to be in denial about whether or not we were ever going to tour again. So I was just like writing songs that felt right to write at the time. But there was, with the exception of one, like there was one song that I really had like a desire, really had a yearning to play with you guys and sing in a stadium. And that one, that's called Champagne Problems. You know, I've been writing songs and playing them for people as sort of a coping mechanism since I was about 12 years old. So, you know, that's just kind of how I process anything that happens to me in life, is I I write a song about it, and then, you know, when I was 12 and 13 or something, I'd go to a coffee house and play it for people. And, you know, even just the slight recognition in someone's eye, like, oh, I recognize that feeling, I've been there, you know, that would make you feel like you weren't alone in a specific, you know, emotion that you were feeling. Because, you know, usually you write songs in the middle of the night, completely alone, and so then getting to come out on stage and sing songs and have you guys sing them back so passionately, like you guys are performing out there. Don't think I don't see your performances. I'm going to make a very annoying request that somebody maybe bring me a tissue. I'm kind of at the end of a cold. It's getting to the point where it's gonna get messy for me on the piano. So I'm just gonna, okay, someone's bring me a tissue. Sorry. Basically, the reason why it's been so long since we've seen each other, we had a global pandemic. It was something we all remember. And 1 second. Okay. Might not be the last time that happens tonight, just a warning. So, we had a pandemic. We weren't allowed to play shows for a while, especially not in stadiums. And you know, I missed you guys so much. I really did. It's so incredible to be back. I was writing an album called Evermore. Of the pandemic, when we didn't know what our future was for live performances. So I just decided, if I couldn't connect with you in the form of playing with you like this and watching you dance and watching you sing the words back to me, I decided I was just going to make as many albums as humanly possible and put them out and connect with you that way. And so that's what I did. And so we do have some new members of the family to introduce. Their names are Lover, Folklore, Evermore, So here we are in the Evermore era, as you can tell by the moss-covered piano. I want to sing a song with you that I've been dreaming about playing live on tour ever since I wrote it. It's called Champagne Problem. My grandmother, who passed away when I was 13. Just recovering from a tiny cold, nothing to see here. It's just a run-of-the-mill blowing of the nose. So that song is about my grandmother Marjorie, and I know she would have absolutely loved to have gotten to sing at Ford Field. And because her voice is on that song, she technically just did do that. So. It's been a minute since I've gotten to hang out with you guys like this. It's been about 5 years before the Eras tour since we got to tour. And in that time, we weren't touring because we weren't really allowed to for a while there, and I really missed that connection that we had. It's something that it's been a part of my life since I was 12 years old. Like, I've been performing and, writing songs and then performing them and kind of, that's been my life since I was 12 years old. And actually, the first time I ever sang at Ford Field, it was 2006. It's a long time ago. It was 2006, and I was singing the national anthem for a Lions game here. So I have been doing this for 100,000 years, and the last 5 years was the first time that we weren't really allowed to perform for you guys for a while. We had a global pandemic. I'm sure you've heard of it. It was a lot for everybody, and the least of everyone's concerns was live music going away. But I still really missed that connection with you, and I really still wanted to keep that. I didn't want to drop my end of the line. And so I just thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make as many albums as humanly possible and put them out. And people were like, well, are you sure you want to put all these albums out and you won't be able to tour on the individual album? And there's so many albums you've made and you haven't been able to tour an individual one. I was like, I have a plan. It's called the Eras Tour. So the new albums that have come into our lives since I saw you last, their names are Lover, Folklore, Evermore, and last but not least, Midnight. And guys, we are in the Evermore era right now, and that album, that was my second pandemic album that I made. And so this was an album I made, while not leaving the house for months on end and stuff like that. And sometimes, when I was writing this song and then I'd sit down at the piano to play it alone in my house, I would just think about what it might be like to play Champagne Problems with you in a sold-out stadium. Just the fact that you guys are all here is, I know that's sort of that seems like an obvious thing to say, but it genuinely is insane for this many people to be in one place, first of all, for any reason at all. I think about that all the time. This tour genuinely twists my brain into several different shapes throughout the night, oftentimes, if we get a very special crowd like this. It's a very, very, very surreal experience I'm having on this tour. I'd say more so than any tour I've ever done. The first time I ever played in this stadium was, it was not my show, it was a Steelers game. field during halftime, and I got to play one of the songs from my first album. It was genuinely so thrilling. But I'm going to say a bold thing right now. I'm going to say tonight is even better. We have tons to catch up on. So much to catch up on. Because I haven't been able to tour for it's been like 5 years since I toured. And so that's 5 years of a lot happening. But I'm just gonna focus in on the musical part of it. We have, in that 5 years, there have been 4 albums I've put out of new music. 4! The way that this came to be is that during the pandemic, there were so many more important conversations happening in the world than touring, but the conversations happening around touring and getting to play shows with you guys, they were not looking good. Everybody was like, this is just not going to happen for a very long time, and if it ever happens on a stadium scale again. So I just decided, that connection with you guys, it's just such an important part of my moving through the world and coping with life in general. So I figured if I can't play shows and dance with you and jump up and down with you and sing with you, then I was just like, I'm gonna make and release as many albums as humanly possible. So that's what I did. And so we have 4 new members of our musical family I would like to remind you of. Their names are Lover, and then we have Folklore, Evermore, and last but not least, Midnight. These albums, it was truly a pleasure to get to make them and put them out into the world. I'm sorry, I just realized I need a tissue. I have the combination of the end of the cold and allergies, and it happens, you guys. I'm asking someone you guys don't have to deal with this. You don't have to try to figure out, please don't, yeah. Someone's gonna help me in 2 seconds. It's just getting to the point where it's really gonna interfere. And you guys have put so much effort into being here today. 1 second, nothing's happening. Sorry, it's just gonna sound so much better this way. Long story short, I was wondering if, since we are in the Evermore era, you would like to, if you would like to sing along with me as we sing Champagne Problems. And I missed ya. I really did. I was gonna tour for an album that came out a while ago called Lover. We were planning shows and we had all these plans and things like that. The reason I bring up Lover is because I feel like we need to talk about the Cruel Summer situation. Does anyone know about this? I don't know if anyone, if all of you know about this, but there's the weirdest, most magical thing is happening. It's never happened to me. In the whole time I've ever been doing this, have I had something like this happen. Cruel Summer is a song, I just played it a second ago. I don't know if you remember, we had a blast. Yep. The one with the bridge where we all screamed. So basically, Cruel Summer was on the Lover album. That album came out 4 years ago. And I just need to let you know something. Cruel Summer, that song was my pride and joy on that album. That was my favorite song. And you have conversations before the album comes out, and everybody around weighs in on what they think should be singles. And I was finally about to have my favorite song become the single off of Lover. And I'm not trying to blame the global pandemic that we had, but that is something that happened that stopped Cruel Summer from ever being a single. So what's happening right now, thanks to you, and honestly, no one understands how this is happening, but you guys have like streamed Cruel Summer so much right now in 2023. It's like at the top of, it's like rising on the streaming charts so crazy, and like my label just decided to make it the next single because it's just happening. Perplexing to me because this is just, I just haven't had something like this happen in my career. So thank you to anyone who's been listening to that song like 500 times a day, because that was my favorite one. Anyway, I just had to say that because, you know, because it's crazy and you're the ones doing it. So I thought I would bring it up and say thank you. So Lover was an album that came out that we didn't get to you know, tour on, but the next album that came out, that was called Folklore. And the next one is the current era that we are in, Evermore. Last but not least, Midnights. That's the last album that's been out. And, you know, Evermore was my second pandemic album that I put out, so I wasn't thinking in terms of, you know, I didn't know if I was going to get to play those songs live for a very long time, if ever. But there was one song that after I wrote it, I was just like, you know, it would be such a moment to get to sing Champagne Problems with a stadium full of